Growing up, Olivia Carter was always the big kid. While other children ran freely without a second thought, she felt the weight of every step, the stares of judgmental eyes, the whispered remarks from classmates who saw her as an easy target. High school wasn't much kinder. Olivia was the quiet, bookish girl, known for acing exams but never for being the life of the party. College came and went in much the same fashion, her mind flourishing, but her self-esteem trapped in the same cycle of self-doubt and ridicule that had followed her since childhood. Her younger sister, Madison, was the opposite, charismatic, charming, effortlessly adored. She moved through life like it was designed just for her, collecting friends, admirers, and boyfriends without breaking a sweat. Madison and Olivia had once been close, but that bond frayed over time as their differences became more apparent. While Olivia stayed buried in books, Madison thrived in social scenes. And as they aged, Olivia realized that Madison had begun to see her as a liability rather than a sister, someone whose very presence disrupted the carefully curated image Madison built for herself. The final blow came the day Madison announced her engagement. The family had gathered for dinner at their parents' house, a rare occasion since Olivia had moved across the country for work. The meal had started pleasantly enough, full of laughter and nostalgia. Then Madison, glowing with excitement, dropped the bombshell. "I'm engaged," she had squealed, flashing a dazzling diamond ring. Everyone gasped, congratulated her, and for a brief moment, Olivia genuinely felt happy for her sister. But then the conversation shifted right to her. Madison turned to Olivia, her grin never faltering, but there was a sharpness in her voice when she spoke. "And Liv, you know I want you to be a part of my big day, but maybe it's time you did something about, you know." She waved a hand vaguely in Olivia's direction. Olivia blinked. "What are you talking about?" Her mother sighed, as if she had been waiting for this moment. "Sweetheart, you've always been a little bigger. And with Madison's wedding coming up, it would be a wonderful opportunity for you to work on yourself. We just want you to look your best." Olivia felt the sting like a slap across the face. She glanced around, expecting someone to protest, to say something, anything to defend her. But her father nodded in agreement, and Madison had the audacity to look pleased, as if she had done her a favor. Madison leaned in conspiratorially. "It's just you'll be in so many pictures, you know? And I want my bridal party to look perfect. Plus, it might be easier for you to find a date if you made a few changes." The words sliced deep, but Olivia did what she had always done. She swallowed the pain and nodded. She didn't argue, didn't fight back. She just sat there, absorbing the humiliation, feeling her family's judgment weigh down on her heavier than any pound she had ever carried. That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, something shifted inside her. Maybe it was rage. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was just the final straw after a lifetime of being treated as less than. Whatever it was, she made a decision. If they wanted her to lose weight, she would. But not for them. For herself. Olivia threw herself into the process with a vengeance. She hired a personal trainer, overhauled her diet, and committed to a brutal exercise routine. And unlike the countless times she had tried before, this time something was different. She wasn't just trying to fit into a dress or prove a point. She was reclaiming her body, her confidence, and her power. The weight began to drop. The muscle began to build. And with each pound lost, Olivia felt something she had never truly felt before. Control. Months passed. The wedding loomed closer. Olivia stayed silent, avoiding video calls with her family, dodging social media, keeping her transformation to herself. She wasn't just losing weight. She was becoming someone else entirely. And when the time finally came to return home for Madison's final wedding preparations, Olivia knew she was about to give them a shock they would never forget. The airport was crowded, but Olivia barely noticed the throng of travelers rushing past her. She stepped off the plane with calculated precision, her heels clicking against the polished tile as she rolled her suitcase behind her. Her heart pounded in anticipation, but she kept her expression neutral. This was the moment she had been preparing for, the moment she would finally make them see her, not as the awkward, overweight girl they had dismissed, but as something entirely different. She caught her reflection in a nearby window and barely recognized the woman staring back. The curves she had once loathed were now sculpted, her posture straighter, her confidence undeniable. Her dark brown hair, once limp and unremarkable, now fell in waves over her shoulders, accentuating her defined jawline. She had mastered the art of understated elegance, trading loose-fitting clothes for tailored perfection. Every inch of her radiated transformation, but she wasn't doing this for their validation. No, this was for her. Her phone buzzed. A message from Madison. "Can't wait to see you. Mom says dinner at 7. Olivia exhaled sharply, resisting the urge to scoff. Madison's excitement was ironic, given that she hadn't even bothered to check in with her during these past few months. There had been no texts, no calls, only assumptions that Olivia would simply show up and play her part as the lesser sister once again. But not this time. She collected her luggage and walked toward the exit, catching the glances of a few men along the way. The attention was new, something she was still adjusting to, but she didn't shy away from it. If only her family had seen her through the same lens before. If only they had acknowledged her worth before it had become impossible to ignore. By the time she pulled into the driveway of her childhood home, dusk had begun to settle, casting long shadows across the well-manicured lawn. Olivia sat in her car for a moment, staring at the house she had once sought comfort in but had learned to associate with pain. She could already hear the laughter inside, the clinking of glasses, the warmth that had always seemed just out of her reach. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out, smoothing her dress as she walked up the steps. The door swung open before she even had the chance to knock.
"Leave."
"Oh my God." Madison stood in the doorway, frozen, her mouth slightly parted. Olivia couldn't deny the satisfaction that coursed through her veins at the sheer disbelief in her sister's expression. She had prepared for this moment, but nothing compared to the actual thrill of watching Madison's carefully curated world tilt off its axis. "Surprised?" Olivia asked, her voice smooth, unshaken. Madison blinked rapidly before plastering on a smile, but Olivia knew her sister too well. That was no smile of excitement, that was a smile of fear. "Wow, you look different," Madison said, her eyes scanning Olivia from head to toe, as if trying to process the impossible. "Guess I took your advice," Olivia replied coolly, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "You know, about losing weight for the wedding." She caught the flicker of something in Madison's eyes. Was it regret? Jealousy? Panic? It was gone before Olivia could place it, replaced by the usual mask her sister wore so well. Their parents were in the dining room, deep in conversation, but when Olivia entered, silence fell like a thick curtain. Her mother gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. Her father, usually composed, struggled to form words. "Olivia," her mother finally managed, eyes wide. "In the flesh," Olivia quipped, setting her purse down. A long pause followed. Then her father cleared his throat. "Well, sweetheart, you look stunning. Doesn't she?" Madison cut in, voice just a little too high-pitched, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. "I mean, wow, Liv. I didn't even recognize you at first." There it was again, that tension, that edge in Madison's voice that Olivia had only ever heard when she felt threatened. And it dawned on Olivia then, this wasn't admiration. This wasn't joy. This was fear. Her sister had always been the star, the center of attention, the golden child. Olivia had been the background character, the afterthought. But now? Now Olivia was the one turning heads. And Madison, for the first time in her life, was no longer the most dazzling thing in the room. The realization sent a shiver of satisfaction down Olivia's spine. "Well," Olivia said, flashing a knowing smile. "It's good to be home." Madison's fingers tightened around the back of a chair, her knuckles turning white. Yes, Olivia thought. This was going to be fun. The dinner had begun like any other family gathering. A forced sense of normalcy, the clinking of glasses, polite conversation layered with subtle jabs. Olivia sat at the table, carefully observing Madison, who was doing her best to regain control of the situation. Their mother had finally stopped gushing over Olivia's transformation, and their father, after a few awkward glances, had retreated into his usual silence. But Madison? Madison was still reeling, still trying to understand how the sister she had always dismissed had suddenly become competition. "So Liv," Madison said, spearing a piece of grilled chicken with her fork, her voice feigning interest. "Tell us what finally made you decide to lose the weight." Olivia took a sip of her wine, keeping her expression neutral. I suppose I just got tired of people underestimating me. Madison's smile was sharp. Well, I'm sure it must have been tough. It's not easy to stick to something like that. Not as hard as you'd think, Olivia replied smoothly. When you want something badly enough, you find a way to make it happen. A flicker of irritation crossed Madison's face before she masked it behind another false smile. Their mother, sensing the tension, quickly redirected the conversation to wedding preparations. Madison, clearly eager to reassert her dominance, leaned into the topic with newfound enthusiasm, going on about dress fittings, the extravagant venue, and of course the guest list. Oh, speaking of which, Madison said suddenly, her gaze flicking back to Olivia, I almost forgot. You'll be sitting at the family table, of course. But you don't have a plus one, do you? It was a question meant to humiliate her. A reminder that despite her transformation, Olivia was still alone. That no matter how much weight she lost, she would always be the awkward girl struggling to fit in. But Olivia only smiled. Actually, I do. Madison's fork slipped from her fingers, clattering against her plate. Their mother gasped. Oh, sweetheart, you didn't mention you were seeing someone. Olivia took her time before answering. It's new, she said with a casual shrug. But I think he'll fit right in. Madison looked as if she had swallowed glass. Who is he? She demanded. Olivia simply smirked. You'll meet him soon enough. The mystery dangled between them like a loaded gun. Madison hated not having the upper hand, hated that she couldn't dictate the narrative anymore. Olivia reveled in the shift of power. But she wasn't done yet. As the night wore on, Olivia played her part effortlessly, slipping seamlessly into the role of the confident, composed woman she had become. Every compliment from their parents, every appreciative glance from their guests, chipped away at Madison's carefully constructed image. Olivia could see it, the way Madison clenched her fists beneath the table, the way her smile grew tighter with every passing moment. And then the final blow. I should probably show you the dress I picked for the wedding, Madison said, a syrupy sweetness lacing her words. Since I had to make some last-minute adjustments. She disappeared for a moment, returning with a garment bag draped over her arm. With a theatrical flourish, she unzipped it, revealing a sleek but undeniably ill-fitting dress. It was obvious what Madison had done. The gown was at least 2 sizes too small. Oh, Olivia murmured, feigning surprise. That's interesting. Madison beamed. I hope it's not too tight. But, alterations can be so expensive. Their mother scared. Madison, you should have checked with Olivia first. Oh, I did, Madison said innocently. I just assumed she wouldn't have lost this much weight. Olivia ran her fingers over the fabric, a smirk tugging at her lips. Well, I wouldn't want to inconvenience you. But don't worry, I brought my own dress. Madison's expression faltered. You what? Olivia stood, retrieving her bag from the chair where she had left it. She unzipped it, pulling out a stunning form-fitting gown that exuded elegance and confidence. It was sleek, bold, and completely overshadowed anything Madison had picked out. Their mother gasped in admiration. Their father, usually indifferent to such things, gave an approving nod. But Madison looked like she was about to explode. Guess I planned ahead, Olivia said smoothly. Just in case. Madison's jaw clenched. It's not about outshining the bride, Liv. Of course not, Olivia said with faux innocence. I'd never do that. The air between them crackled with tension. Olivia had spent years being humiliated, years swallowing her pain while Madison basked in the spotlight. But not anymore. She wasn't playing that role any longer. The game had changed. And for the first time in her life, Olivia was the one calling the shots. The days leading up to the wedding had always been expected to revolve around Madison. Every conversation, every event, every decision Madison had made sure it was all about her. But for the first time something had changed. Olivia could feel it in the subtle shifts of attention, in the way their mother kept sneaking glances at her, in how their father, a man of few words, actually looked at her with something other than absent-minded dismissal. Even the guests who had arrived early seemed intrigued, whispering in hushed voices when they thought she wasn't paying attention. Olivia had never experienced this kind of power before, and damn did it feel good. But Madison wasn't going to let it stand. No, she had spent years ensuring Olivia remained the forgettable, overweight sister, and she wasn't about to let all of that crumble days before her wedding. The night before the rehearsal dinner, Olivia found herself in the kitchen pouring a glass of wine when Madison stormed in. Her sister's normally composed expression was gone, replaced by something raw, something desperate. "You think this is funny, don't you?" Madison hissed, her nails digging into the counter as she glared at Olivia. Olivia didn't flinch. She took a slow sip of her wine before responding. "You're going to have to be more specific." Madison's jaw clenched. "You know what I mean. This whole little transformation stunt. Showing up here looking like..." She gestured at Olivia, unable to even say the words. "This." A slow smirk curled at Olivia's lips. "Like what, Madison? Like someone who finally figured out how to take care of herself? Someone who isn't willing to be treated like an afterthought?" Madison's nostrils flared. "You're ruining my wedding." Olivia laughed, a low, amused sound that only seemed to infuriate Madison further. "Your wedding? Last I checked, I'm not the one making it all about me. That's your job, isn't it?" The tension between them thickened, neither willing to back down. Madison's hands curled into fists at her sides, but she forced a breath and straightened, composing herself. Then a slow, devious smile spread across her face. Olivia recognized that look. Madison was scheming. "I hope you enjoy your little moment, Liv," she said sweetly. "Because it won't last." Olivia arched a brow. "Is that a threat?" Madison shrugged, turning on her heel and walking out of the kitchen. Olivia watched her go, unease settling in her stomach. Madison never let a challenge go unanswered, and Olivia had just given her the biggest challenge of her life. The next day, everything went to hell. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be simple, a gathering of close family and friends, a time for speeches and toasts before the chaos of the actual wedding day. Olivia had been prepared for snide remarks, for Madison's inevitable passive-aggressive digs. What she hadn't been prepared for was the bombshell that Madison dropped in front of everyone. Midway through the dinner, just as Olivia was beginning to enjoy herself, Madison stood and tapped her glass, drawing attention to herself with an award-winning smile. "Before we wrap up for the night, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge someone very special." Olivia tensed. Madison's gaze locked onto her, and Olivia knew this was going to be bad. "My sister Olivia," Madison continued, her voice dripping with artificial warmth. "You know, she's been through quite the transformation, and I think it's only fair that we celebrate her as well." A few guests clapped politely, clearly confused. Madison's smile widened. "In fact, she's changed so much. It's almost like she's a completely different person." She let out a theatrical sigh. "But I have to wonder, how much of it is really hers?" A murmur swept through the room. Olivia felt her stomach tighten. Madison turned to their parents. "I mean, isn't it crazy how quickly she lost all that weight? How different she looks." She turned back to Olivia. "Tell me, Liv, was it just diet and exercise, or did you have a little help?" Silence. A deafening, crushing silence. Olivia felt her heart hammering against her ribs. Madison wasn't just trying to humiliate her. She was trying to destroy her credibility, planting the idea that Olivia's transformation wasn't real, that it was artificial, that she had cheated her way into this new version of herself. She had to act fast. Slowly Olivia stood, keeping her face unreadable. The room was waiting for her response, guests looking between the two sisters like an audience at a boxing match. She stepped closer to Madison, lowering her voice so only she could hear. "You're scared," she murmured, watching Madison's expression flicker. "That's why you're doing this. Because for the first time in your life, you're not the one everyone is looking at." Madison's jaw tightened. Olivia leaned in just a little more. "You can try to take me down," she whispered. "But I'm not that girl anymore." Then she turned to the crowd, flashing a dazzling smile. "I get it, Madison," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It must be hard, knowing that your wedding isn't the biggest event of the year after all." A ripple of laughter went through the guests. Madison's face flushed a deep red. Olivia wasn't done. "But since you're so curious, let's clear this up. I lost weight the right way, discipline, hard work, and taking care of myself. But I get it, you wouldn't know much about hard work, would you?" The room erupted in laughter, and Madison looked like she might combust on the spot. Olivia had stolen her moment, turned it back on her, and now Madison had nothing left to say. With one final glance at her fuming sister, Olivia sat back down, lifting her glass in triumph. The game had changed once again, and this time, Olivia wasn't just winning. She had already won. The morning of the wedding dawned crisp and clear, but Olivia could feel the storm brewing beneath the surface. Last night's confrontation had left Madison rattled, and Olivia knew better than to think her sister would take that loss lying down. There was still one more act in this twisted family drama, and Olivia wasn't about to let Madison control the narrative. She stood before the full-length mirror in her hotel suite, smoothing the fabric of her dress. It was stunning, sleek, sophisticated, and a deliberate contrast to the old version of herself that Madison had tried to trap her in for years. This was Olivia as she was meant to be, and nothing was going to steal that from her. The moment she arrived at the wedding venue, the energy shifted. Heads turned. Conversations paused. It wasn't just admiration. There was tension in the air, an unspoken knowledge that something was about to break. Madison was already at the altar, standing under an extravagant floral arch, her fiancé beaming beside her. But Olivia only saw the stiff way Madison's shoulders set, the slight clench of her jaw when their eyes met across the crowd. It was a silent warning. Stay in your place. Olivia smiled. Not today. The ceremony proceeded smoothly enough, the vows exchanged with the perfect blend of sentimentality and spectacle. But the real war would be waged at the reception. By the time the first toast was raised, Olivia could see the cracks forming. Madison was doing what she did best, performing. But there was an edge to her voice, a nervous flicker in her gaze every time someone approached Olivia to congratulate her on how incredible she looked. Their mother was no better, alternating between forced enthusiasm and barely concealed irritation. Olivia's transformation had rewritten the family dynamic, and none of them knew how to deal with it. Then came the moment Olivia had been waiting for. The DJ called for speeches. The best man gave a heartfelt toast. The maid of honor, one of Madison's picture-perfect friends, gushed about her. And then, to Olivia's surprise, Madison stood up, tapping her glass. "I just want to take a moment," Madison began, her voice sugary sweet, "to thank everyone for being here today. It's been such a journey to get to this moment, and I couldn't have done it without my friends, my family." She turned toward Olivia, her expression unreadable. "And especially my sister." A murmur went through the crowd. Olivia's stomach tightened. Madison continued, "Olivia, you've really outdone yourself these past few months. I mean, we all remember what you used to look like." A few guests shifted uncomfortably. "And now here you are, proving that anyone can change with the right motivation." The underlying venom was unmistakable. She wasn't congratulating Olivia. She was discrediting her, implying that Olivia's success was manufactured, artificial. Olivia set her glass down carefully, refusing to give Madison the reaction she wanted. But Madison wasn't done. "And of course we all know that beauty isn't just about appearances," she continued, her smile razor-sharp. "It's about kindness, generosity, knowing your place." That was it. The final thinly veiled shot. Madison was trying to put Olivia back in her box. Olivia rose to her feet, slow and deliberate. The room fell silent as she picked up her glass. "You're absolutely right, Madison," she said smoothly, raising her glass in return. "Beauty isn't just about appearances. It's about confidence, strength, knowing your worth." She let the words hang in the air before continuing. "And knowing when to stop tearing people down just to feel better about yourself." A murmur spread through the guests. Madison's smile faltered for just a second before she forced it back into place. But Olivia wasn't done. "I do have to thank you though," Olivia added, tilting her head slightly. "If you hadn't spent years trying to make me feel small, I might never have realized just how big I could be." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Madison's eyes darkened with fury, but Olivia only smiled sweetly and took a sip of her champagne. The silence stretched until the DJ awkwardly stepped in. "All right. Time for the first dance." The tension broke, but the damage was done. Olivia had taken the final shot, and this time Madison had no comeback. As the night wore on, Olivia slipped outside for a breath of fresh air. The weight of the moment settled over her, the realization that she had finally, truly freed herself from the role she had been forced to play for so long. Footsteps approached behind her. She didn't have to turn to know it was Madison. "You think you won?" Madison's voice was low, shaking with barely contained anger. Olivia exhaled, then turned to face her sister. "I think I stopped playing your game." Madison's jaw clenched. "You ruined my wedding." Olivia studied her for a long moment, then shook her head.
No, Madison.
"I just stopped letting you ruin me." For the first time, Madison had no response. Olivia didn't wait for one. She turned, stepping back inside, where music and laughter filled the air. The party continued without her sister's control, without the weight of the past dragging her down. For the first time in her life, Olivia wasn't just surviving. She was free.